High inflation is fast becoming a global trend as a combination of surging energy costs, strong demand, and supply chain disruptions continue. The rising prices have gone beyond what economists expected. Consumer prices rose in October at their fastest pace in 3 decades in the U.S., Canada, the U.K., and eurozone. In emerging markets such as Turkey, Brazil, and Argentina, inflation rates have hit double digits. Now we take a closer look at the U.K., where inflation has surged to 10-year high at 4.2%. The UK says its consumer price index, including housing costs, rose by nearly 4% in October compared to last year. Just in September, the figure was below 3%. Britain accounts 3 sectors for high inflation. First, prices of housing and household services saw a 1.2% rise, the largest in the past decade. The second is transport, with price hikes from 0.2% in May last year to 1.08% in October this year. Lastly are restaurants and hotels, which saw prices at an all-time high in August since records began in 2006. Some analysts say this is a result of a temporary scheme that encouraged more British people to eat out. The United Kingdom says it's facing supply chain challenges on top of COVID-19 and the fallout from Brexit. But some retailers say they're being able to get ahead of possible shortages just in time for the Christmas rush. Julia Marn has the latest in our series on the supply chain crisis.
Look who's in town to unveil this year's Most Wanted.
Merry Christmas!
Gizmos to spark creativity and imagination.
We've gone back to role play toys, we've gone back to cute and cuddly, and there's been kind of less, what I would say, less influenced by films in the background.
From the familiar to a range of educational toys, the shelves here are rammed.
Up in Lapland, we have our own supply chain because we build our own toys. You see, we have all the workshops where the elves put together all of the toys after we receive the letters from the children. We don't have to outsource in many ways, and of course we're our own delivery service as well, given that we have the reindeer.
Santa might have dodged it, but sector-wide, inventory is lean as suppliers navigate severe air, sea and land shipping snags.
Funko, who make these, say 70% of them are produced in Vietnam, where they've had some big port issues. But shipping is only part of the puzzle. Another is inflation. The price of materials is rising fast, from plastics to packaging, wood, metals, even electronic components. So it might not just be a case of getting hold of a bestseller, the price might go up too.
Sending a single container from Asia to Europe costs 10 times more than it did a year ago, which eventually gets passed on to consumers. US toy makers expect retail price increases around 25%. Bosses say everything from food to decorations will go up. Furniture maker DFS expects prices to rise 3 to 4% next year.
We've been building stock. At this moment in time, we're in a very, very strong position. If I had a magic crystal ball that could predict the future, I think I'd be, the top of everybody's list, wouldn't I? But at the moment, I can just say we've built a very strong basis for the peak period.
As the festive season draws nearer and demand swells, toy stores are hoping they'll still have something for everybody under the tree. But to avoid missing out, consider Christmas shopping earlier than usual. Juliet Mann, CGTN, London.
And now for more on the supply chain crisis, we're now joined by Mr. Chu Chan. He's the Assistant Director of the International Monetary Institute at Renmin University. Thank you so much for your time, Dr. Chu. So the supply chain crisis is only one of the major causes of the UK's inflation. What are the factors that are leading to rising prices?
Well, as we've been hearing from the report, most of the detailed reasons has been mentioned. Due to the impact of the COVID-19, we do suffer from, globally, the problem of the supply chain. That's something everybody understands. And there's another reason we have to brought it out. That is the Brexit. I mentioned it about 3 years ago. That is it's going to cause some serious problem when there is an impact on the very delicate supply chain on inside of the European Union and on UK. I remembered when I was in the UK, many jobs are actually been taken by some other, we call it immigrants or the outside workers, like the workers from Romania, from Spain, from Czechoslovakia, and some people from there, and they hugely brought down the cost in the UK. But right now with the Brexit and the new visa policies, everything changes. A lot of jobs needs to be taken by the domestic workers. Well, this is something good news for the domestic working forces, but also we're going to see the huge increase in the price and the cost. And also we're seeing the very easy policy of the currencies right now all around the globe. UK, especially the Bank of England, is one of the great contributor to the easy policies and the currencies. And all these factors has been boosting up all the prices around us.
Well, Dr. Xu, as you mentioned, the Bank of England adopted very easy monetary policy in face of the pandemic. Help us understand its monetary stance, and will tightening be on the way?
Well, Bank of England is very cautious. It's one of the probably most classic central bank all over the world. They've been invented lots of policies and tools are in the banking history. So they've been more than anyone to understand the danger of inflation. We're hearing about more than 4% of the inflation around UK. Well, it doesn't sound like too horrific, but if you look into the real life, when the statistics tell you there are 4% of the inflation, normally if you're going to look at the history of the England, you're going to see the inflation rate is around like 1% or 2%. When it hits 4, it tells you that the price of the daily supplies probably has been increased by 20% or 25%, considering some other stuff like the computers or like the personal vehicles. Usually their price would not go up that quickly. So basically the food, diaries, and other things has been going up very dramatically. It's more than people's, more than people can take in. So right now, I think Bank of England really want to manage the expectation for people on the policies of the currencies. But they have still something to fear because there's still uncertainties and pandemic. We are hearing about the Omicron is still hitting us. So right now, I'm not seeing any current or very immediate tightening up the currency policies recently by Bank of England.
Now, Dr. Chu, it seems 4% is not worse. The reports say Bank of England expects inflation to rise further to around 5% in the spring of 2022. What is that for people's daily lives, and what actions can be taken to offset that?
Well, as I mentioned, 4% or 5% even is not some horrible figures if you hear about the figure itself. At least when we are in the 1970s or 1980s, when the whole world's been hit by the oil crisis, the inflation ratio is more than 10% or even 15%. But right now, you have to understand that we have a very different monetary system. Back at that time, we have the Bretton Woods system. We have not been issuing so much paper notes by the central banks. But right now, we have a vastly developed financial market. We have been a hugely sophisticated banking note system by all the central banks around the globe. So right now you're talking about 4% of the inflation ratio, but basically you're going to see people's actually daily consumption will have a huge cost, more than ever. So we're going to say 4% is a very dangerous signal, so not only in the UK, but also around the globe. It's a similar situation like this. So I think tightening up the currency policies is very urgent, and we need to consider it right now.